Hello, beautiful people. It's a rainy day in Milwaukee. Update, I'm in Milwaukee. I just wanted to drop in and talk about what I went through, what life has been like, and how I ended up here and how things are going. I loved rehab so much. I wish everyone could take 28 days to dive into themselves and unearth the lies they've been telling themselves and also their truths, and questioning why they believe what they believe and if they want to continue to believe that. And, just really getting in touch with the stories we tell ourselves and recognizing what parts are true, what parts are not true, and navigating like our value system and how we want to interact with the world. It was incredible. The people at Nova, they know what they're doing. I showed up and I was like, I'm not sure the alcoholic shoe fits, but if it does, I'm open. Which, kind of sounds like BS, honestly. But I did stay open. And one of the counselors there had done a lot of outpatient work, and he had pointed out that by the time people usually get to rehab, they know that they're an alcoholic or an addict. I'm a rare situation where that's still in an exploratory phase. And he, I told him, I was like, I just need to believe it wholeheartedly. I don't want to just throw the word around because I'm supposed to. I also need a term that resonates with me. Because that's just who I am. I'm not going to spew what I don't believe to be true. So he gave me a gift. He kind of gave me the gateway into acceptance, and he gave me the term episodic alcoholic. And it's a term that was coined, I believe, in the 70s. It's not so much used anymore, but I'd like to revisit it because it helped me understand myself and my patterns. And I think there's a lot of people out there that could identify with this term. An episodic alcoholic is someone who binge drinks primarily. It is not that they are chemically dependent. It is not that they plot their next drink or need to drink first thing in the morning or do so secretly. These people can usually maintain a quality of life that appears fine. They can keep their ducks in a row. But when they do drink, they lose control, right? So it doesn't matter how much, what it is, when or where. Addiction comes in the inability to put it down. And I'd been saying for a while that I had noticed that I'm the type of drinker that once I start drinking, for some reason, I feel like I always gonna have a drink in this hand. And this last year I started realizing that I'm often the drunkest person at the party, and some things would happen and they're kind of funny stories, but also when I look at them I'm like, well, we're 31 years old, why are we still acting this way or doing these things? And why is it that we wake up the next day with shame and guilt and, depression and anxiety and regret, right? So an episodic alcoholic, again, that's the binge drinking. And when they drink, usually things occur that wouldn't normally happen if they weren't drinking, like episodes, right? And I was like, wow, that glass slipper slides on just right. And once I was able to wrap my head around that, I was able to start internalizing what being an addict or an alcoholic looks like for me. And at first the word was very hard to say. There's the stigma around it that's been, multi-generational of an alcoholic is a bad person who makes bad choices. An addict is, somebody who lives on the streets. It's not true. Addiction does not discriminate. And I worked through with my counselor my truths, and the thing that we wrote out was the truth that I've come to know about myself is I'm an alcoholic. The reason I don't like saying the word is because I have shame attached to it. I feel defeated by the word because of that shame, and I have reservations to never drink again. The concept of never, ever, 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 ever drinking again is just kind of bananas, because within my industry that I've worked so far, cocktails and wine are something that go along with the fine food that we serve. And it's just been threaded into how I experience the world and what I do with my friends and, all of that stuff. I think that's why this alcoholic shoe was hard to locate for me, hard to distinguish, because under the guise of restaurant life and an affinity and knowledge of fine wine, it was hard to detect. Also, like, my cohort are, drinkers. We heavy drink. We drink semi-frequently, and, we're from Wisconsin, so in large amounts. And so it really didn't occur, I think, to anybody right away that this was a problem. Maybe a little bit recently, but even to my parents, it was something that we'd never fully considered before. But here we are, and it makes sense. When I was deciding to go sober for myself, I'd reflected on the last 10 years, and I was like, I just feel like alcohol and men have caused me a lot of grief, and I haven't made a conscious, calculated decision. That's why I wanted to go sober for myself. That's why I made it the 22 days of sobriety on my own. And I was nearly there on my own. A year ago, I sat with my tree, and I asked for help. I told it I couldn't do it by myself. Not yet knowing that the alcoholic shoe fit, and not yet knowing what kind of magical help was on its way to me. And the people at Nova, they know what they're doing. I loved my counselor so much. I love many of the counselors. I came up with a little crew of friends. We played Yahtzee, sequence, volleyball, got up and watched the sunrise and read daily meditations. I obviously gravitated towards the kitchen and found myself in a dish pit. And the kitchen manager sure took a liking to me. I began delegating tasks to other clients. Just taking the life I already lead everywhere I go with me. So, but yeah, it was incredible to be able to experience all of the exercises they had us do. You do a timeline where you reflect back on your entire use, you mark when you were born and then when you had your first drink or drug, and then you go through your history and you get very specific about amounts and what happened, what was going on, and the consequences. And when I took a look at it that way, light bulb went off. There was a period there where both alcohol and drugs were substantially used in my life. But because I kind of gave the drug part up, I didn't think I had a problem. But some of the behaviors that are symptoms of the disease continued on, right? So that was awesome to do and really eye-opening. We also do what's called psychodrama, where a couple of counselors help us act out an experience that we are struggling with. I didn't ever personally do one of my experiences, but I was witness to two other people's, and it's like a 3-hour thing, and you're in there, and they're prompting you to really dive deep and go deep, and you just watch people kind of go into what they hold in the most and what hurts the most, and they bring it to the surface and they bring it out, and it is some moving shit. It's powerful. I asked the counselor if it's normal to have a headache after, and she said yeah. And your whole being is just kind of weighted, and you're supposed to just sit in those feelings and really, really feel them. So that was awesome. And we did groups with everybody and co-ed groups, but I grew to love my women's groups, so much so that on the day I was booking out, I asked to delay my book out so I could attend my last women's meeting. But there's just something really powerful that happens when you bring a group of women together, because they're very honest. There isn't a lot of judgment. We are able to go to the deep corners of our minds and hearts and support each other there and relate to each other and hold space for each other. And it's one of the coolest things I've ever experienced. So, and I'm going to stay in touch with some of these people for the rest of my life. It was really great to have a crew to go to when you're experiencing all these heavy things, and just to be able to sit with each other and know that they understand that you don't really have to talk about it. And we've all had crazy stories, and we all ended up at the same place for crazy reasons, but that we're all good people who suffer from a disease and aren't in control of our choices when we're under the influence of drugs or alcohol. So I think something that my counselor said that's going to stick with me, well, two different counselors said two things. I'm going to go through those now. My counselor that I was assigned to, she said to me that she doesn't think I have a self-worth or self-esteem problem. She thinks that I have an alcohol problem, and a symptom or effect of my use is low self-esteem, because I do things I'm not proud of or that I regret, and then I get those hangovers filled with shame and guilt and depression, and I feel like my use has been binging and semi-frequently for about a decade, so it would make sense that my self-esteem suffered for just as long. And that was kind of like, like duh. And it kind of reaffirms the fact that I wanted to be sober to make clear, conscious, calculated decisions and really stand in everything that I am without altering that state in any way. And then that other counselor that I talked about that gave me the episodic alcoholic phrase, he said that I'm in a really interesting position because my use might be moderate in comparison to a lot of other people that are in rehab or even like in the community, in the recovery community. My use is moderate, at a moderate point. It is a progressive disease. It will continue and it will become fatal. But I'm not quite there yet. But the consequences that I've endured because of my drinking are severe. So in a way, like, severe consequences are like never ideal. But the fact that the use is moderate and I can catch it now and learn to live without it now and learn to live a beautiful sober life now, I'm not going to suffer some of the physical side of things that alcohol can do to people. And I'd get a little tripped up wishing that this had happened sooner. But I think that the universe has kind of been pointing me in this direction for a year. And it just makes sense. And I just got to a point at Nova where I was like, well, you're here now. You're here now. So we can stop wishing that we'd figured it out sooner. We can stop wishing that, it didn't have to take rehab, that we weren't an alcoholic, that we could still somehow manage to drink like a regular person. I'm not a regular person. I've never been a regular person in general. But my biology just reacts differently to substance. And under the influence, I lose control and rational thinking. And those things are just true. And it doesn't make me a bad person. There's 10% of the world that suffers from this. And it, often is genetic. And then there's other reasons that it can occur from, your environment to your emotional and mental state. So, I learned a lot. Got quite the education. COVID was weird. We pretty much stayed hunkered in there. But that's okay. I'm me. I've lived in some pretty crazy ways, crazy places, and I'm flexible. So new environments aren't that tough for me. And they don't tell you when you call the first place that they're gonna recommend aftercare. Because if they did, you wouldn't show up. So when the aftercare conversation came up, I was open because this whole Emilie being an alcoholic is brand new. So my only thing that I said to my counselor was like, I'm open to aftercare, but I don't just want your average peer run sober house. Like, I know how to live. I know how to keep a house, keep my jobs, take care of my dog. Like, I know how to do all those things. I don't need to learn how to live. I just need to further educate myself on what alcoholism is and what it pertains to, how it pertains to my life, and how to stay involved in the recovery community. So can you find something with treatment for me? And she did. And that's where 4D in Milwaukee comes in. So it's a sober living situation with some PHP and outpatient attached to it. So we still go to a center and do multiple groups a day, and I have a counselor that I meet with once a week, and we do AA and NA meetings on Zoom. So it's very involved, and I can continue to unpack this whole thing and unearth I think what's always been there but just was previously hidden to me. And I'm here till the middle of December. It's a 3-month thing. It's super weird living with people you probably wouldn't pick in the regular side of the world. It's kind of like I feel like I've gone back to college and I'm majoring in sobriety. And I'm in a sober sorority, like Kappa 12-step Delta, I don't know. I sleep on a bunk bed, I share a room. But, overall the girls are chill and we're all just, bumbling around on this journey together. So, why Emilie fied everything. I left love notes for all the people that I loved at Nova, and I've reorganized the kitchen here, and, so I'm still being me. And yeah, I think that's where it stands now, is that I feel good. I'm learning a lot. I'm okay with everything that's going on. My head does do that thing where it dances between I wish this didn't have to happen and of course this is happening and it's okay. I think that's super normal because this is super fresh. It was really easy to stand in my newfound truth in the bubble where I found it. now that I'm kind of out in the world, and the more I talk to people, friends from the outside, I notice myself going to this place of like, oh, yeah, who we used to be, and then who we're becoming, and then like in the middle is who we are, and it's changing moment to moment. So just being super aware of that. But I feel very blessed and very lucky, and I'm still very grateful for your donations that made Nova possible. The GoFundMe is still up. I got a sponsorship for treatment here, which is incredible. It saves me like $9,000. But I just have to pay rent, and I've been out of work for 6 weeks, and I'm looking at probably another week or two until I can go back to work. So if you wanted to donate in any way, the GoFundMe is still up. If you want to call and reach out, I would love to hear and see you. We're not accepting visitors at this time because of COVID, but I've gotten really fond of writing letters, so if you want to be pen pals, reach out too. And yeah, I think that's all I got. Things at my house and door are good. My roommate from last winter kind of showed up right before I went into treatment and loves the house and loves the dog, and he's taking care of all the things. So the universe is smiling down on me, and I feel it, you know? I feel it. I'm just trying to really absorb the fact that I'm here and stay present in it, stay curious, stay accepting, feel all the feels. Next on the docket is some coffee dates with people with multiple years of sobriety, in hopes to find a sponsor so I can start working the 12 steps, which is a whole thing. So, but yeah, I'll keep you tuned in. I just wanted to drop a line and kind of give you an overview and let you know that I'm okay and everything's groovy. And you know, if I'm gonna miss a year of my life to uncover myself, this is probably the one. So, yeah, I love you all, and we'll talk soon. And if you watched this all the way to the end, thank you. Hi, I'm Emilie, and I'm an alcoholic addict, and sobriety is my superpower. So, have a beautiful day. Enjoy the rain. You know, that's all I got. Bye.